Ladies and gentlemen, this is the best news you're going to hear all day. This is absolutely hilarious. Tell your friends to subscribe to this channel. Be here at 9 p.m. Pacific every evening. I will have my live stream at 9 p.m. Pacific, 9 or 9:30 p.m., but almost always 9 p.m. Pacific every evening on this channel. We have the best late evening live stream in all of YouTube. Gets up to like 800 viewers at times, sometimes even more than that. Senate Democrats demand investigation of John Durham's investigation. Senate, this is law and crime. Senate Democrats demand investigation of John Durham's investigation. Axios, House Democrats ask DOJ watchdog to probe Durham's Trump-Russia investigation. Thank God Michael Horowitz has zero power and can't find intent if a person was running at him with a sword. Politico, House Dems call for an emergency DOJ watchdog review of Durham probe. So the Inspector General, this is really hilarious. They want to investigate the investigator who's investigating their investigators. House Democrats call on DOJ watchdog to open investigation into Durham inquiry. Top House Democrats called for Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz to investigate Attorney General William Barr and U.S. Attorney John Durham for their investigation of the Trump-Russia investigators 1 day after Senate Democrats made the same request. We write to ask that you open an emergency investigation into whether Barr, Durham, and other Justice Department officials appointees are following DOJ's longstanding policy to avoid taking official action or other steps that could improperly influence the upcoming presidential election. They are going after President Trump with the Southern District of New York, and they don't care about the election. They're the biggest hypocrites on the planet. They knew they had nothing. The Mueller probe knew it had nothing before the midterms in 2018. They kept going, which is one of the biggest things that helped Democrats. Didn't help them in the Senate. But the Mueller probe had nothing. Can you answer? Okay, this is what I would love to ask if I ever had the pleasure of debating anyone on the left who thinks that the Mueller probe or that Russian interference is real. Can you please describe a Facebook ad that swung voters in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania? One Facebook ad, because apparently there were a whole bunch of Facebook ads. So forget about the fact that nobody was indicted on working with Russian agents, and forget about the fact that they haven't quantified or defined how Russian interference led to people changing their votes. There's no definition or they've never explained how that happened. Did a person look at a Facebook ad and then suddenly said, "Martha, I'm voting for Trump. Can you believe this?" Like, how did it happen? Because they say, well, it's interference. Did the DNC emails push people towards Trump? Because that showed that Bernie Sanders was cheated and Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign. So are you also then saying, Democrats, that you cheated Bernie Sanders and that your primary wasn't fair? Which one is it? So their propaganda narratives coincide or are always competing. And they always come up with these conflicting narratives. They say, well, Clinton won the primary. She got the most votes. Well, Trump won swing states. He got the most votes. Oh, but that's different. That was Russian interference. Well, you mean to tell me that Debbie Wasserman Schultz resigned in 2016 because there wasn't interference from the DNC against Bernie Sanders? Was it fair and neutral? So which one is it? They don't, when it comes to, this is the heart of the matter. When it comes to just saying, well, you know, this person got the most votes, they say that with Hillary Clinton in the primary. And they say, well, Bernie wasn't cheated because Clinton got the most votes, but she got the most votes because he was cheated. Because Debbie Wasserman Schultz was forced to resign and media was in on it. And the Clinton campaign, according to Politico, not just the DNC emails, met with journalists at dinner parties. And so the whole thing was rigged and it was a charade. We found that out, and so the DNC emails did what? They interfered in the election? How? Oh, they showed that that Democrats were corrupt and cheated Bernie Sanders. Oh, no, they didn't show anything. It was fair and square. Like, everything was above board. So what's the problem? So they're trying to end the Durham probe because the thing is, it's so simple. They went after President Trump because of a dossier purchased by Clinton. All of these things were taking place during the election because if they lost, they had a backup plan. They could save face. Now, when they lose again, I'm going to start every live stream and every upload with, you lost twice, Democrats. You lost twice. You cannot rebound from losing 2 elections in a row to President Trump. You cannot call Trump supporters and President Trump these monsters if the country votes. And you know what? After the second election, go ahead and try to do away with the Electoral College. Go ahead and try to pack the courts. Go ahead and try to see how far you get, Democrats. But the issue is the following. There was no Russian interference. Facebook ads purchased by a Russian troll farm or a CrowdStrike assessment that is, they don't have concrete evidence. James Clapper and John Brennan, they're highly to moderately confident. The ODNI report, which is the basis of the Trump-Russia nonsense, is a report compiled by James Clapper. That's why when Chuck Todd asked him in March of 2017, do you have direct evidence that Trump or his campaign worked with Russia, he said, we don't have any direct evidence that Trump or his campaign worked with Russia. And then Chuck Todd kept asking, like an imbecile, well, if you had the evidence, would you say it? Would you admit it? Yeah, yes, Chuck, I would. We're trying to make everything up. Why would I even? Yeah, if I had the evidence, I would obviously tell you. So there was no evidence even before the Mueller probe started in like May and June because of Comey's memos, a disgruntled, fired government official. And they sensationalize everything because they're such arrogant narcissists. Well, Trump won. It had to be a Russian plot. They're the ones who accepted in a foundation run by the Clintons money, millions upon millions of dollars. And then President Obama does not veto the sale of 20% of U.S. uranium capacity to a company that eventually everybody knows is going to be purchased by Putin, or at least already had ties. Then there was one Russian official indicted under President Obama's administration for a bribery and racketeering scandal that was taking place, where trucking companies were taking this. The whole thing was all convoluted, but apparently, according to the New York Times and one of President Obama's own government agencies, yellow cake uranium was shipped out of the country. This is according to the New York Times, made its way to Canada. You think Putin didn't get, and then some made its way to Europe? So you don't think Putin just found a way to get that? And then the rebuttal is, well, there's no evidence that Putin has any. Well, there's no evidence that the troll farm was told by Putin to run Facebook ads that nobody saw. But CrowdStrike is not even certain that the DNC that Russia hacked the DNC, but they roll with it. And how they get away with everything is, well, all the smartest people believe this. The consensus is the following. They get away from hard evidence, direct evidence, with, well, the consensus is this. Well, who cares about that? Who cares about what a bunch of disgruntled, frustrated, angry, vindictive imbeciles who always side with the Democratic Party, whether it's corrupt intelligence officials or a dossier or people who compiled a dossier that was purchased by Clinton or a tech firm that's outsourced by Democrats. They literally purchased their own myth. They literally purchased their own myth. They purchased their own myth with money. They bought a myth. They bought a hoax. And media, and not just like believed it, like actually purchased it, like spent money on creating a myth and a hoax and a charade. And they had a CrowdStrike company that they gave money to. They gave money to Christopher Steele. They didn't have to give money to Strzok or McCabe or Comey. Those people wanted. You look at Kevin Kleinsmith. It's interesting that I can't believe they didn't indict this man on his anti-Trump text messages. Vive la résistance. And then he's like, all these things, like, against all these anti-Trump text messages, just like Strzok. I mean, they got away with everything. Almost got away with everything. Because you know what? Kevin Kleinsmith was indicted, and there's more to come when President Trump wins. But they want a review because they know the whole thing's nonsense. One of the reasons they will lose is because they spent 4 years on Trump working with Russia, which never happened, and about 3 months on a reckoning. That's how they explain, well, this is a reckoning on race. 3 days before George Floyd was murdered, Biden, reading from a teleprompter, I told you back then, I said, and it's going to be Hillary Clinton. You watch. Clinton is going to be there. Every day that passes, I don't become more nervous about my prediction. I become more rock solid in what I'm like. They can't possibly go with. They're almost certainly waiting until the very last second so that people have no choice but to say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to focus on whether it's right or wrong that Clinton is replacing Biden. I'm just going to, you know what? Focus on this, and we'll talk about it after the election. So when Clinton comes in either after the debates or before the debates, who cares? Eventually, she'll be on that ballot on November 3rd. And according to Politico, the Electoral College doesn't care. The electors in the Electoral College don't care if the nominee is replaced by another nominee a week before the election. That is so. When people say, "Well, the ballots have been mailed in," doesn't matter. The electors will vote based on political party. So if people voted for Biden, those votes go to Clinton. She could just come in a week or 2 weeks before. That was according to Politico. They already went through this in September of 2016 when Donna Brazile for a second was thinking of replacing Clinton because of what happened. So, but this is really interesting. The heart of the matter is the following. They cannot quantify. They cannot say, well, 77,000 votes were altered because people believed Facebook ads. They never came up with a study because the study would prove that the Facebook ads are nonsense, and they come up with a study on everything. Protests never led to a spike. A study shows that Trump supporters really weren't interested about economic issues. Study shows that they come up with either a consensus of all the smartest people in the room or a study. But then they don't look at the studies that say, well, Medicare for all would double or triple tax collection. Those studies are bad studies. Their studies are good studies. You can conduct a study on anything and say that you've taken into account bias, and of course not take into account bias. Same with polls. These polls are supposed to be scientific. They're not scientific. They're not scientific. If the laws of physics were based on how these polls are conducted, we'd all be floating around. Okay, and there's nothing scientific about these polls. Nothing. They don't reflect. They don't reflect public opinion. They try to influence and shape public opinion. That's why when they're like, just everything that you see, like this Biden, like the man is losing his marbles. He's wheezing. He's slurring his speech. He looks like Tales from the Crypt's cousin. And everyone's like, this guy's losing his marbles. This guy's losing his marbles. Then they come up with a poll. Poll shows that both Trump and people think that both Trump and Biden are mentally unfit. It's a poll that shows they're both the same. It's relative. It's like, okay, when you can look. Judgment Day is coming. When you hit the iceberg twice, you already hit the iceberg in 2016. So they're just going full steam ahead with a new and improved ship. It doesn't matter. You're still not going to get through that iceberg. They never learn because they have a media that coddles them. That like. Reality, whether it's a candidate losing his marbles or whether President Trump is actually doing amazing things, you should hear the rebuttals from, well, they already had a de facto peace. Like, de facto peace isn't peace or formal diplomatic ties. Focus. President Trump presided over a peace deal with Israel and the UAE and Bahrain. And by the way, to the Jewish people watching, Shana Tova, and to everyone watching, Shana Tova, Happy New Year. Slow down, Democrats, slow down. It was a de facto peace anyway. They wouldn't buy F-35s. Was there formal recognition prior? Were there diplomatic ties prior? Could you fly from those countries, from that country to another country? Focus. Well, no, you couldn't. But calm down, and we'll teach you to accept reality after November 3rd when you lose. Again, you lost twice. The only thing you need to say to people when they lose again on November 3rd, I should have done it. You lost twice. You lost twice. Click. You lost twice. And that should be hashtag you lost twice. And then, of course, then the social media, the hashtag you lost twice has been linked to every horrible racist monster on the planet. You can't say that because the Russians want Russian intelligence services say that you lost twice is part of a Russian plot to sow division in the post-election climate. They're too stupid to be Orwellian. Because at least in 1984 it was such a dystopia that it was frightening, and no, they're just anything that they don't like is part of a Russian plot, or they link it to right-wing racists, or they say the consensus disagrees, and so you don't even have to don't take them seriously at all. But definitely don't argue with anyone. Do not even think of discussing politics with anyone who has even a hint of Trump derangement. That's family, friends, coworkers. Don't do it. Even if they try to lure you in. Well, what do you think about the election? I don't want to talk about it. It won't end well. Because and if you notice, ladies and gentlemen, every Trump supporter out there, I'm supporting President Trump. I'm a Trump supporter. You're very likely a Trump supporter. You know you're going to win because you know you're going to get there early. And you're passionate and enthusiastic for a reversal of U.S. foreign policy. The Lincoln Project people and Bernie Sanders are voting for the same person. Case closed. The Lincoln Project people and AOC are voting for the same person. Speaking of, it is impossible for the DNC to allow AOC to endorse Bernie Sanders. So when Clinton says, gosh, President Joe Biden, yeah, right. That's like Caligula and Nero saying, I'm going to give you you can become emperor. How's that? Don't accept it because it's not going to end well for you. I'm talking, that's I'm being facetious. I'm not talking about anything specific. I'm saying that this whole thing is a charade. Hillary Clinton does better among Black and Latino voters. That's the main reason why, at the end of the day, Clinton will become the nominee after this nominee. It'll be Clinton on that ballot. I will have made the biggest political call of all time, or just a very good political call. In Trump going 8 years, hashtag you lost twice. So, give me your thoughts below. To my new Patreons, thank you very much. If you want to support my voice long term, I don't have $20 million in venture capital funding. So, to my Patreons, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, be here 9 p.m. Pacific tonight.